Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews out in Los Angeles, and like it or not, deny it or not, Donald Trump is punching the political establishment in the belly by grabbing many American voters in the gut. Meanwhile, the other money people in the Republican Party are gunning up the focus groups to find out where to nail Hillary Clinton. They're sharpening their attack to bring down the Democrat they expect to face next November, and it's going to be brutal. But right now, as we approach the first GOP debate, it's Donald Trump leading the attack and jacking up, doubling his countrywide favorability. Ron Reagan's an MSNBC contributor, and Lan He Chen was the policy director for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. Last week, Republican Party Chairman Reince Priebus told Donald Trump that he has struck a chord, and now Trump is strumming it harder than ever. He hit the political biggies in the gut in front of a packed house of thousands in Phoenix this weekend. He attacked Jeb, slammed Hillary, dumped on the press, of course, and he bashed illegal immigrants. Let's watch him in action.
And the poll just came out, and I'm tied with Jeb Bush. And I said, oh, that's too bad. How can I be tied with this guy? He's terrible. He's terrible. Hillary Clinton's going to be a horrible president. It's horrible. They don't want to give it straight because the press are liars. They're terrible people. They're terrible people. I had an idea. I think it's good. Every time Mexico really intelligently sends people over, we charge Mexico $100,000 for every person they send over. The silent majority is back, and we're going to take the country back.
Well, by the way, just as a point of fact here in that clip, Mr. Trump was referring to an online poll that doesn't meet NBC's standards. But make no mistake, Trump is on to something here. In a new Monmouth University poll out today, he's doubled his support since April. He's the #2 spot right now with 13%, just 2 points behind Jeb Bush. Right up there, those two are duking it out for the top position. Let me go to Ron Reagan. This is an interesting development. I'm inclined to the view that he'll go middle distance. I'm not sure he'll go all the distance. I don't think he's quicksilver, however, like Michelle Bachmann or Herman Cain, like one of those guys. Where do you put him as a factor?
Well, watching Donald Trump is a little like watching a room full of monkeys, Chris. There's a lot of commotion going on there, but not a lot of substance. And after a few minutes, you move on, and I think the electorate is going to do the same thing. It's summer now. It's summer in the year before the actual election. And Donald Trump can serve as a sort of amuse-bouche for the campaign here. But I don't think he's going to maybe not even last into the middle term. By fall, I think when we come back from vacation, things start getting a little serious. Everybody's going to settle down and realize that Donald Trump is really just running for the attention. He's not really a serious candidate at all, and people will move on. Well, since when does motive matter? It doesn't. I mean, if it's working, he's going to stay in. He's not going to quit if he's doing well. And motive doesn't matter. If he's a charlatan, a showman, a businessman, which is all those things in many ways, he still seems to have grabbed something in the gut of the American conservative, the working class Republican. What do you see? The polls will show you. He has found something, Ron. What is it that he has found that seems to be jacking him? His favorability has doubled in the last couple of weeks. He's found about 15% of the Republican electorate who likes bashing immigrants. But I don't know that there's that much more of the Republican electorate who's willing to cross over and actually consider voting for somebody like Donald Trump. Again, but you act like there's another, let me just tell you, another 15% are backing Jeb Bush. Who is this grand Republican army that's going to beat him? I think he's up against mush. I don't see any talent out there that's as talented as he is to grab a crowd. I don't know who. Who would you want to go see give a speech right now? Scott Walker? Yeah, Chris, I mean, no, you're absolutely right.
I disagree with you, Chris. Lonnie, well, perfectly well that you do. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I disagree with you. I think this field's a lot stronger than the field in 2012. I think you've got some people there that could catch fire, whether it's Rubio or Walker. And Jeb Bush has obviously got a lot of money. But look, I agree with Ron. I think Donald Trump is a flash in the pan. I think he is speaking to something right now, but we're way out from the election. And look, if polls mattered at this point, we'd have a President Herman Cain or President Michelle Bachmann.
I know that argument.
I think these polls are just, but I think it's a fair argument. I think it's the right argument.
But nobody was afraid of Herman Cain. But Lon He, was anybody afraid of Herman Cain or Michelle Bachmann? It seems like the Republican Party, led by the great Reince Priebus, is scared to heck of this guy. They're trying to cool him down. They never tried to tell Herman Cain to stop saying 999 or Michelle Bachmann to stop saying her idiocy. They thought they were clowns. They weren't going to destroy. I think they're afraid of Trump. That's my argument. Go ahead.
Well, there are two things, Chris.
I don't think
two things that. Oh, I'm
Go ahead,
sorry,
Ron
Lonnie.
first. Ron first.
There are two things that Trump's doing. One is he's further damaging the Republican brand because he is a clown act here, and people will see that, and yet he's attached to the Republican Party. And the other thing is there are a lot of candidates out there who are desperate for a little media attention, and this guy is sucking all the oxygen out of the room, not being a serious candidate, and that infuriates a lot of them.
Lanhee, your thoughts on that? Why are they afraid of him?
No, I do think part of the problem here is that he is taking energy away from candidates who could be legitimate, who could be making a policy point. You know, you look at folks like Rick Perry or Bobby Jindal and others, they're going to be hurt, I think, by the fact that this guy's out there spouting off. Look, I don't think he represents mainstream Republican values, but obviously he does speak to something. And so at this point in the campaign, you just kind of have to grin and bear it. But I don't think he's going to be a factor come October, November, and I certainly don't think he's going to be a factor in New Hampshire or Iowa.
Right, okay, well, the numbers we're looking at, we'll get to them later in the show, Lanhee, but they do show him doubling his favorability number generally and going up from 20% to 56% among Tea Party people, but not only Tea Party people. Anyway, Trump's driving the party mad right now, we can agree. Presidential candidate Lindsey Graham says Trump is a wrecking ball for the Republican Party. Let's watch Lindsey.
There are some candidates who agree with Donald Trump that want to make him their vice president. There are some people who love Donald Trump and say that he's speaking the truth. What I think he's doing is being a demagogue. I think he's a wrecking ball for the future of the Republican Party with the Hispanic community, and we need to push back.
Okay, and Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey, isn't happy with all the attention Trump's getting. Here's Christie on Fox today.
Donald is a friend. I've known him for 13 years, and I like him personally. But his comments were inappropriate. That's now the 15th time I've said it, and it's going to be the last time I say it. Because, you know, but no, seriously, when I'm out there talking to folks, nobody in the real world asks me about this. Sure. Nobody.
Right.
You know, but every time I get on a media show, all anybody wants to talk about is Donald Trump.
You know, what is it that he's appealing to? You just think it's, Ron, you just think it's prejudice against Hispanics. It's as simple as that. You think that's it?
Well, yeah, there's this nativist element in the Republican Party, as we well know, and it's a fairly big chunk of the Republican Party now. I mean, the Republicans are, what, 30% of the electorate now, and 15% of that 30% really apparently warms to the idea of calling Mexican immigrants rapists. Yeah. But I don't know that there's much more than that 15% out of that 30% that really thinks that's the way to discuss the issue of illegal immigration, by calling Mexican immigrants rapists.
Lanhee, your view of that. Thank you. I want Lanhee to jump in on the very same question. Do you believe the Donald Trump impact right now, we're seeing in the polls, he's up there right behind Bush, is all about prejudice against people of Hispanic background, of Latin American background, Mexican especially? You think that's what it's about?
Well, I think that may be part of it. I think the bigger issue, though, is that there is a thirst in the Republican Party, probably in our politics generally now, for somebody who's not going to have nuance, who's just going to come out and say, look, this is what I feel, this is what I believe. I think people look at Barack Obama and they feel like, you know, he's a guy that's pretty nuanced. I think even people who work for Obama would admit the same. And so in some ways, this is a backlash. It's a reaction to that. They want someone who's just going to tell it to them straight. And, you know, like it or hate it, Donald Trump does that. I think his comments are offensive and I think they're awful. But look, he does have a certain style that's appealing to some people.
Well, Lanhee, what is the Republican policy on illegal immigration? Because they don't have a bill coming out of the House, which they control. Does the Republican Party have a policy on stopping illegal immigration? How would they stop it? The people coming in tomorrow night, not the people who lived here 20 years. How do you stop people coming to this country illegally? How do you do it? What's the Republican policy?
You know, Chris, I think this is part of the problem, is that unfortunately the policy discussion hasn't advanced very much past the one we had a few years ago. You know, I think most people would say we've got to do more on border security, but we have to address this question of what you do with the 11.5 million people who are here illegally. I think that is an important question, and unfortunately,
so you're answering this the long way. In all respect, we don't have a policy from the Republican side that you can enunciate.
Donald
I think
Trump
we got
has
lots
a
of
policy.
policy. I just think we haven't been able to put it together yet.
Oh, but they do have. Where is this
policy?
Yeah, where is the policy of the Republican? Just a minute, Ron. Where's the policy of the Republican Party? See, I believe Trump's doing well because nobody else is talking about the issue in terms of solution. His is a ridiculous solution, sending everybody away. This country would be in revolt if you took everybody who's been here for 20, 30 years. But you could have a policy about stopping illegal hiring, which, of course, business doesn't really want to have a policy on because they get the cheap labor. Let's face it. There's a lot of hypocrisy here, Lanhee, in the Republican Party and across the board. So what is the Republican policy on immigration to do what Trump says he'll do? Deal with the problem. What's the Republican solution he's up against? I haven't heard it.
I think it's a step. I think it's a step-by-step approach. I think E-Verify and true employer verification is part of it.
Why don't they pass the bill? No, there's an E-Verify bill on the floor. They will not bring it up to a vote.
You know what, Chris, that's a tactical question. I think it's important for Republicans to address immigration.
Your party doesn't have an immigration bill to brag about because they won't deal with the issue. Trump is dealing with it in a gross, intolerant way. We all know that. But at least he's addressing it, and your party is empty-handed, and that's why Trump's walking into this mush. And your thoughts, Ron?
Well,
I don't know what they are, but go ahead.
Well, Trump does have a policy on immigration. It's the sort of unnuanced policy that we were hearing about. It's build a giant wall, and then apparently we invade Mexico.
Okay, what's the Republican establishment policy? But Ron, what's the alternative to the Republican lights?
There is no alternative from the Republicans because it requires nuance, the sort of thing that Lonnie was saying Republican voters don't want to hear about now. You can't deal with something like immigration or legal immigration by just building a wall on the border.
I agree.
You need to secure the border, but you need a path to citizenship. You need all sorts of reasonable things on the other side, and the Republicans won't have that right now.
By the way, all three of us would make it here, no matter how high the wall was. If there's a job waiting for us somewhere in Chicago, we'd get there. Let's be fair.
Build a higher ladder.
We need legitimate rules and progressive rules for immigration and working in this country. And nobody wants to address the thing honestly and progressively.
Exactly.
Anyway, at the height of Trump's circus today, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, the front runner in Iowa, actually, officially declared his candidacy just moments ago. Let's watch him in action.
Since I've been governor, we took on the unions and we won. We defunded Planned Parenthood and passed pro-life legislation. And we now require a photo ID to vote in this state. After a great deal of thought and a whole lot of prayer, we are so honored to have you join with us here today as we officially announce that we are running to serve as your President of the United States of America.
We are running for president. I love that royal we. Anyway, Scott Walker's an unknown personality for many Americans. The top question on Google today, after he announced, is, who is Scott Walker? Lanhee, you first this time. Tell me, I went through his speech today. I listened to every word of it. Everything leans right. I was surprised that a governor who I thought was somewhat moderate on issues, certainly as a governor of a state, you have to be somewhat moderate. You have to deal with the Democrats in your legislature, that across the board he's taken every rightward position. Is that for Iowa? Is that tactics?
Well, I think he recognizes that he's going to be in a Republican primary election, so he wants to highlight his conservative credentials. I think that's perfectly reasonable to do. I think Iowa is a very important state for Governor Walker. I think he probably has to do quite well there if he hopes to be the nominee.
Ron, he went against climate change. He went out against same-sex. The guy hit every one of the buttons today. I mean, every single one. I'm surprised he didn't show the word we've been using now, a little restraint, a little bit, wear a bikini. Don't come naked to the party. A little frickin' restraint. Don't just give everything to the right. And he seemed like he did it,
He actually cited the Laffer curve when he was talking about his economic policy, which is, as you know, is the long discredited idea of trickle-down economics. But, I think he's got to win, as Lon was saying, he's got to do well in Iowa because he's got to break out early. He can't just sort of hang around through a few primaries and then hope to suddenly erupt there. He's got to find some way to distinguish himself now and break out of the pack. It's the problem that all these candidates have now. What are there, like 500 Republican candidates now? How do you distinguish yourself?
How do you get a big applause out of, I'm going to have we have a photo ID law in Wisconsin. I mean, how do you get an applause out of that? Anyway, thank you, Ron Reagan. Thank you, Ron Reagan. Thank you, Lanhee Chen, for joining. Please come back.